What did you do last Wednesday? If you're sitting there struggling to remember, then keep watching because I think I finally found out why. If you ask me what I did last month, I honestly wouldn't have much of an answer. And this is not because something bad happened. Actually, it was quite the opposite. Everything was fine. I woke up, I worked, I sat at my desk until 5, I made something to eat, and then I sat back down to work on this channel. And then I went to sleep. And objectively, that is a fine, normal, regular day, right? But somewhere in the last few months, I kept getting this feeling that I just couldn't shake. Like, is this it? Is there all that there is? Same room, same chair, same type of work, until something external happens to change it. And I didn't want to admit this to myself or say this out loud because it just sounds so ungrateful. I have a job that pays my bills. I live in a place that people have it as part of their bucket list. I'm 26 years old, so time is on my side. Nothing is actually wrong, which is what made this so confusing. So why did it feel like I was watching my life instead of living it? If you've been here for a while, you know the whole thing this channel has been about. Symptoms versus mechanisms. The idea that most advice treats what you can see. So for example, I overthink, I procrastinate, I scroll too much, etc., etc. But the problem is always one layer underneath, which is the mechanism. Knowing this, I wanted to share that, and I still believe it because it genuinely made a difference for me. But I ran into something specific in the last couple months. You can find every mechanism to your problems and fix them and still end up with days that feel exactly the same. Because here's the thing about a mechanism. It can tell you why you're stuck, and it can even help you brainstorm solutions for it. But it does not help you to think where you want to go instead. I got really good at diagnosing the problems, but I never actually sat down checking whether these things that I want were the things that I actually chose, or if I even wanted to do them in the first place. So I did the thing that I always do, which is trace it down to the root. Where does this sameness actually come from? And the answer that I landed with is almost nothing in my average day is actually decided. Like, when did I decide that I'd work at the same desk I'd just spent 8 hours at? I didn't. It is where my entire setup is. When did I decide my weekend should consist of something that I should be able to report back on Monday? Never, but I feel it every Sunday. I want to give this a name because I think this is different from a habit. A habit is something at least you noticed at some point. You decide to go to gym, you decide to journal, you decide to eat healthy, and then you failed at it. But that's another story, and I made a whole video about it. This is different. I'm calling these defaults. Because to me, a default is anything that is running in your life that never got a decision attached to it, which is precisely what makes them very hard to see. There is actually no failure that you can point at. So then the question is, where do they even come from? If you think about it, some of them are very practical. The desk, for example, is where my entire laptop, my work setup is. But a lot of them, when actually traced down, came from something dumber than that. It came from what I had seen. If you ask me what a good morning routine looks like, I have a very specific picture of it in my head right now. Where did I get that from? Very transparently, it is from watching other people's morning routines. Same with what a productive day looks like, or what a successful 26-year-old is up to in life right now, or what qualifies as a great weekend. None of that is actually from my life. But see, I understand this because you cannot want something that you've never been shown before. So your whole sense of what is even available got assembled out of whatever happened to cross your feed. It's not a moral failing, it is just how our brains work. But it does mean that if you never check, your life quietly organizes itself around a picture that you didn't consciously choose. Okay, so knowing this is one thing. I didn't want to make another video where I understand something beautifully and do nothing about it. That is literally the trap that I have been describing in the last 13 videos on this channel. So what I've been doing instead is that every time I catch a default, I try to interrupt that. That's it. And I've been making little videos about each one. So if you've seen my real shorts, you've basically been watching it happen in real time. And none of these are very grand, big changes. That is the point I want to make. You don't need to do an entire life overhaul. I mean, stuff as small as I went to a cafe to work instead of sitting at my desk all day long. I try to make my Mondays a little less dready as much as I can, instead of just bracing for them and just waking up with anxiety and going straight into my meeting. I took my book to the park instead of failing to read it at my home for the 15th time. Just these small little interruptions. And from doing all of these things that I'm doing now, what I can say now is that it made the day distinguishable. Like, I could suddenly tell you what actually happened on those days now. They weren't just absorbed into the same blur of every day is the same. But I want to talk about two of my reflections that I have from this process so far. First is that you cannot audit everything. If you try to consciously decide every single element of your life, you will be paralyzed in about 4 hours. Defaults exist because without them, we would be exhausted. And most of mine are actually fine. So the point isn't to have no defaults. It is to know which ones you would still keep after noticing them. Second is that interrupting the autopilot is not the same as knowing where you want to go. All I've proved to myself so far is that my days are not fixed. So think of it in steps. First step is to understand that your days are not fixed. And then comes, okay, now that I know this, what kind of life do I actually want to build? I don't know that yet, but I'm collecting evidence toward it. So if you take away one thing from this, I'd say don't start by trying to figure out what you want. That question is way too big. Every time I've tried to answer that, I've ended up copying, consciously or unconsciously, someone else's answer anyway. So start smaller. Just find one thing in your week that you never actually decided and change it slightly. Just a tiny interruption to the default. That's what I'm doing now, and my plan is to keep documenting it. Because if you think about it, the question of what kind of life do I actually want doesn't get harder by thinking about it or frantically searching that sentence on YouTube at 2 a.m. I believe now that it actually gets answered in pieces by noticing what you never chose and finding out what happens when you choose something else. We're still a very tiny community here, so if you're here, you're at the very beginning. So subscribe and let's figure it out together. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.